his videos.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks, the organizer, for giving me an opportunity to present. I just share my video, means a complete presentation. Actually. Sorry. Is it visible? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is my case. This is a case of managing a large traumatic posterior tear with a short-term PFCL tamponade. Patient came with a history of trauma in the right eye with iron particle a day before, and CT scan showed no intraocular foreign body. Visual acuity was PLPR accurate in this eye, and other eye was absolutely normal. Ultrasound showed vitreous hemorrhage with retinal detachment. So this is my first surgery. Like this was the trauma. Just sutured it the corneal tear and went ahead with lancectomy. And this was a kind of vitreous hemorrhage. It was a dense vitreous hemorrhage. And then I could see there was a large posterior tear. I put. I just proceeded with by putting after with putting the PFCL, and then could see that there was a large tear, and it was even extending uh, so inferiorly also, and uh, then finished the vitrectomy. There was a peripheral vitreous which is removed it. So this was all, and even with indentation as much as possible, I removed the vitreous. Then as soon as this, and also under PFCL, I finished the laser photocoagulation. Then as soon as I just went ahead with PFCL removal, I could see like in the periphery there was subretinal blood which was approaching towards the macula. I tried to remove this blood, but again, as I repeated it once more, but I could not remove it, and again it was coming towards the macula. So then I thought like better I leave this case under PFCL, and then I go ahead with a sec. Uh, with a second surgery. And after 10 days, I went ahead with the second surgery. And under PFCL, first I lasered all those suspicious areas and completed my peripheral laser photocoagulation. Then I went ahead with the exchange and removed the PHL, and I could see like the retina was well settled and absolutely fine. And as there was a very short tamponade, I left it again under silicone oil. So this was under silicone oil. The patient had 624 vision after 1 month, and this was the OCT. This was actually my second case, and basically of a very similar nature. The main aim of presenting this is under PFCL, I have noticed that there is less inflammation, there are less chances of ERM formation. I just brought this case because maybe because when we leave it under silicone oil, there is a gap between silicone oil and retina, and there are a lot of macrophages and inflammatory material which accumulates between the silicone oil and retina, and especially in cases of large posterior tear that there are ERM formations, so which I didn't notice in both my cases. Definitely, there are a very few number, not much number, but just a thought to present. Thank you. Any questions or anything?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Navneet. So these post-trauma cases, specifically the ones with tears, are usually a challenge, and we do end up seeing more extensive PVR, I guess, in these cases as compared to what you would otherwise see.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
any experience or any points for our from our panelists for how to tackle such cases? What has been their experience? What are their preferred practice patterns?
Leaving PFCL nowadays, a lot of people do in giant retinal tear also. So it is not this is practiced by a lot of people.
How
Yes, sir.
long would you leave it? 2 weeks or more? When do you re-intervene to remove it?
I did it at around 10 after 10 days, but yes, they say like after 10 to 14 days, because there are studies in which they have shown like if we leave it for a longer period, there could be inflammation because of PFCL. So they have shown in studies about for 1 month, but yes, it's always a good idea. Like after 10 to 15 days, we should go ahead and remove PFCL.
By which time our laser scarring also would have
Yeah,
happened.
exactly. Yes, ma'am. So my main aim in this case was like for a posterior tear, like because I was expecting like there could be some membrane formations and all could be there in such cases. So maybe the space was not there, and maybe not much experience, but yes, two cases did well.
So what do you think was the cause of that bleeding coming from the infratemporal aspect? Because
Actually,
I think the
yeah.
bleeder was from away from the site of the tear.
Yeah, actually, this was a post-traumatic case, and somehow I think it's very difficult to predict in post-traumatic cases the tears and the areas which can bleed after like surgeries. But definitely there was no iatrogenic any injury during surgery which could have caused any subretinal bleed.
You think there was a fluctuation of IOP? Maybe the IOP
Yeah,
suddenly went down and there was sudden hypotony which caused the effusion of the blood? Because I think it was coming from deeper layers.
yeah, it could be maybe because this was a traumatic case. I sutured the tear also, and sometimes like even when we immediately switch over to air, then there are always chances that the pressure in
Goes
for a
down.
short period like it comes down. It may be the
Mhm.
cause, but so for that reason, although my main reason at that time for leaving under PFCL was the subretinal blood which was coming. So somehow, but I have seen in two cases like even these posterior tears and macular, they do comparatively better if I leave under PFCL in cases of posterior tears.
What is the longest duration that you left PFCL inside the eye, or anybody among the panels?
I think I have not left after I usually remove in 10 to 14 days.
Yeah, I have also never left beyond 2 weeks. Usually, not only does it cause
Yeah.
inflammation, it can also cause RP damage because of its own
Yeah.
mechanical properties. So
Yeah, because of
there
its
are
own
studies which
mechanical.
have shown that till 2 weeks you're still under a safe zone. So even I have never left beyond 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Anybody else with any different opinion or different experience?
We had a very interesting case where this patient was already having a silicone oil filled eye, and there was some lifting of the posterior retina, which was with the break inferiorly. So we added PFCL, and with the hope that we were going to, finish the surgery and remove everything within a week's time. And then the patient vanished, and she came to me after I think more than a year or so, and the whole PFCL oil complex had become like like mobile oil.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of extensive RP damage. The retina was attached. So, but when we started removing the oil, I mean, it was a nightmare because even at 500 section, it just wouldn't move. So we had to remove with the 20 gauge finally. And so I just an experience I will tell you.
Thank you. Any experience with subretinal PFCL for any of our panelists, any of our speakers, Anirudh, Aditya, Dr. Vivek, Navneet?
Actually, one thing that I have noted is when there is in giant retinal tear, the posterior extent is something like a radial extension towards the posterior side. That extension of the giant retinal tear little posterior. We can get sometimes subretinal PFCL in many of these cases. Small bubbles may get trapped. I had one patient like this. I noted the subretinal PFCL immediately after 1 week or something like that. Then COVID, because of the COVID, patient turned positive, and after 3-4 months he came, and then I removed it. I just made it was not at the fovea, little away. That area in the OCT showed complete atrophy where that PFCL was. So subretinal PFCL, especially at the fovea, you can't leave it like that. That is what I feel.
I had a case
recently a case where I was trying to inject PFCL onto a retinal detachment area to flatten the posterior pole. And inadvertently, I managed to create a macular hole with subretinal PFCL, and then it had to be drained through the drainage retinotomy peripherally, and then completed the macular hole surgery as if we have a primary macular hole where I do ILM peeling and then manage the proper detachment later on. But it can happen. I mean, sometimes it can be really funny on table to realize that such a thing can happen to you, and then it does.
Yeah.
I had a very similar case, like I left under PFCL and in a same like a similar very trauma case only, and then removed it. And then when I put it under oil, then there was a subretinal PFCL globule right at the fovea. But I followed up this patient for at least for 1 year, but the vision was maintained at 636. And after 1 year, spontaneously there was a macular hole formation, and that PFCL came into the vitreous cavity, and the vision was well maintained. So still the patient has silicone oil inside, and there is a macular hole, small macular hole. Vision is same. There is no visual deterioration. He has maintained to 636.
So when you have a subfoveal oil bubble, PFCL bubble, as one of the panelists just mentioned, they had, how would you remove it? Would you put more PFCL on the macula to dislodge it, or what? How would you move it away? without a hole. It's without a macular hole. You see a subfoveal bubble. How would you remove it? You can't make a hole over the fovea to remove it.
So what
ma'am.
I have tried one thing, ma'am. What you can do is that you have got this 41 gauge needle, the one with which you inject
Yes.
subretinal TPA.
Yeah.
That's
You can
right.
connect it to your VFC port.
Yep.
And then with the aspiration of that, you can easily enter that PFCL bubble and then aspirate it back. The advantage over here is I have actually faced this 3 times. One was my own case, one was some operated elsewhere, one was my fellows. The first time I tried doing it with a soft tip needle, I made a small retinotomy just at the edge of it. But the problem is that the PFCL bubble tends to move away. It slips away from your needle entry site. So the advantage of a subretinal TPA injecting needle is that its tip is mobile and flexible. You can use it to engage the PFCL, and with your VFC with aspiration, you can just aspirate it back. So I did it in the next 2 cases and those went on very well. So that is what I used, the 41 gauge needle to aspirate that.
And then you didn't need to laser that.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
It was a 41
No.
gauge entry. So then you
41,
don't even need to laser it.
Yeah, I think that's what is recommended. But since we are talking about this subretinal PFCL, I think another tricky situation is subretinal oils, where
Yeah.
you have in recurrent PVRs, the oil goes under the retina, and sometimes you don't realize it. You remove the oil and you still see the retina is still stretched anteriorly. And it's probably when you're doing the retinectomy, suddenly a large oil bubble comes into the vitreous cavity. So, and I've had cases where the operating surgeon elsewhere, in one case, actually they had used 5,000, and in another case, they had used Densiron, and we did not have a history. So I kept sucking, and nothing is coming out. And then I probably just realized that this is Densiron. This is not the usual silicone oil. And again, we had to make a larger incision, put in a 20 gauge kind of the IV cannula, and just suck in the Densiron. So sometimes it's very difficult to suck out the Densiron, which actually goes into the subretinal space.
Yeah, that subretinal silicone oil can be an absolute nightmare, sir.
Yeah,
But the presence of
always
that
we have
shows
to-
that there is some traction which has not been released.
absolutely. Yeah, so
Something
most
not
of the
be correct.
times, most of the time it's only when you start cutting the retinectomy, the oil comes forwards. You don't, and it's so much like if you see the edge, we feel that it's only a small bubble.
Yeah.
But the more
Yeah.
you keep cutting the retina, the entire bubble comes into the vitreous cavity.
All of us see this subretinal oil in our failed PDR surgeries, where there is
Yes.
reproliferation of membranes, and
Reproliferation.
it's a nightmare.
Regarding the subfoveal PFCL, I had a couple of patients who came, just after in the first postoperative period, I found that the patient had subfoveal PFCL. In both of these patients, I just waited for 2 months. The moment I saw that the laser has been taken up quite well, I went for an earlier SOR, and as has been mentioned just now, a 41G cannula would just aspirate the PFCL. But yes, there is significant amount of RP atrophy if the PFCL remains underneath.
And if the bubble is very small, you can't even make a retinotomy. How close can you go to the fovea? So unless you make a macular hole. So so the bubble has to be of a reasonable size for you to use this
Yes.
technique.
Yes, and it's that omega sign in the OCT that makes us sure that we get for sure that it is subretinal PFCL that we are thinking.
All right, I guess. Thank you so much for so nice and such valuable input.